So, welcome to the video on fasting. Now, I can tell you I fasted 20 hours a day every single day for an entire year. I wasn't eating for 3 to 5 days at the beginning of every single month, and that is not advice. So, all of the advice, as in all of these videos, talk to your doctor, talk to your PCP, talk to somebody much more smarter and educated than me. But what we're going to do in this video, the same as what we've done in all the other videos. So, if you're watching this on the website, this video is going to be a little bit close to the gut microbiome video, a little bit close to the brain-derived neurotrophin factor video due to the BDNF video, our conversations that we've had about glucose and the effects of brain-derived neurotrophic factor with anxiety, and then also the BDNF neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, the intermetabolic switching, are all going to be a part of this video here. But the very first thing we're going to start off with is research. So anytime somebody's trying to learn how to fast, there's research papers on how you should actually start fasting. Now, I know a lot of people have probably heard of fasting before. I can tell you one of the main issues you're going to experience with fasting, being a new faster, is hypoglycemia. So we're not going to use this as the first research paper, which is How to Fast Guide. We're actually going to use the intermetabolic switching research paper so you can understand your brain is going to go from carbohydrates as a fuel source to fats as a fuel source. So as always, by the end of this video, I hope you learn some things about fasting that you don't know now, and among the things you learn, you might want to talk to your doctor, talk to your PCP, talk to somebody smarter than me before you start to fast. But I can tell you that fasting definitely is going to increase your neuronal plasticity. And if you're trying to read books on 3.5 speed, well, fasting is going to help you get there a little bit faster by generating new connections in your brain a lot faster than the average human being. Then you can get some myelin sheaths. We'll save that for like special bonus learning. You like myelin sheaths? Do you know what myelin sheaths are? Learn about them. So flipping the switch. Okay, so this is understanding and applying the benefits of fasting. Now this is with intermittent fasting. So now there's multiple different types of fasting. Some fasts are better than other fasts, but majority of people are going to do intermittent fasting. And the model that I was following that you don't have to follow, because for some reason I know a lot of people like still eat breakfast and then they fast into the afternoon. A little confusing. The model that I was following for fasting was 8 hours of sleep, usually 8 to 9 hours of fasting, and then I would work out and then I would break my fast. And I'll explain to you in a little bit of the little word PDF that we do right here just to show you some things about cells and absorbing sugar into your cells. But the very first thing you have to realize, so the liver has glycogen stores. Once these glycogen stores are depleted, your body is going to start to utilize its ketones. So a key vitamin, pantothenic acid, you're going to realize helping between the carbs and fat conversions in your body. So going into fasting, if you don't have a healthy diet or optimized nutrients, the fast might be a lot harder for you. And Snickers actually has the slogan for this. It's called "Hungry, Eat a Snickers." So like their slogan is very real. You get hungry, you get hyperglycemic, you get a little bit upset and angry, you're not going to be yourself. So you maybe will experience lightheadedness, you may experience a little bit of lethargy, you may experience some anger, you may experience some brain fog. This is why it's important to work with a health professional. If you need help with fasting, our dietitian can help you do that all day long. She fasts almost every single day. I fast almost every single day. So fasting is a part of lifestyle. Like today, I'm not going to eat. That's just today. It's 11:11 p.m. Look at that, 11:11. Guess make a wish, right? Something like that. Don't make a wish. Just put in some hard work and your dreams will come true. So as always, we're going to go over some of these research papers, but I want you to understand this one between flipping. So significantly improving your cardiovascular health. So several studies in overweight humans, okay, short-term, fasting can significantly improve cardiovascular risks. So improve your actual health of your heart by not consuming all of the terrible sugar foods. So you'll realize a lot of these research papers, a lot of these health modalities, they're all about improving the quality of your health, and they all connect to one another. So if you're looking at insulin sensitivity and mitochondrial functioning, this goes back to the brain-derived neurotrophin factor, where we were talking about flipping the switch. So going from the carbohydrates to the fats as fuel, carbohydrates burn at 4 calories per 1 carbohydrate, fats burn at 9 calories per 1, so that puts the unit in 2.1 times the amount of energy down to the mitochondrial function itself. So this is where a lot of people that fast, when you first start fasting, it'll be one of the most amazing experiences in your life until your body becomes adjusted to it, and that's your new baseline of energy. So for instance, as I was stating in the brain-derived neurotrophin factor video, I would break my fast with cake. Don't do it. Nightmare. Absolute nightmare. Like lethargy nightmare. Like you're going to be like, I can't even stay awake. I'm so sleepy. The cake is kicking in. It's going to make you so tired and lethargic. You're going to be like, what did I do to myself? And then you'll recognize, oh my gosh, I've been doing this myself all day long. So when you have a certain amount of certain amount of blood glucose levels. Sorry, apparently I can't speak. It's late at night. But when you have so much sugar floating around in your body, your lethargy, there you go. There's a lot of inflammation going on. This is why fasting is known to really help your body out. So I'm going to grab a few key points on here. I'm going to highlight a few key points on here, and I'm going to share those with you. So what you'll notice is you might see on research papers, it says consuming a little bit less calories than you need. What fasting actually allows you to do is you can consume a little bit more, but you're in that fat burning state. So a lot of people say, can I fast and gain weight? Well, I mean, yeah, of course. You're going to get absolutely shredded if you fast. If you're looking to get shredded, a lot of people aren't looking to get shredded. This is just some mental health benefits. And, the ab stuff comes from fasting. They say, abs are made in the kitchen. Well, I mean, you can always make your abs not in the kitchen because you don't eat food, but eat food, please. Definitely don't do the 20-hour every single day for an entire year unless you're trying to do 24 splits and eating one meal a day. Very hard to adapt to one meal a day. It takes months to adapt to one meal a day. It is not fun. You will feel nutrient deficiencies, and it is just, I don't suggest it unless you're working with a professional. So, work with a professional. But anyways, so caloric restriction. You can have days where you eat a little bit about a food. Like there's one where they talk about like 600 calories in one day, letting that be its thing, fasting, alternate day fasting. So one of the big things is, so it says right here, eating without restriction the next. So you can eat low calorie one day. You can still technically burn through that, keep yourself in a little bit of a fasted state. And then the next day, you don't have a caloric restriction. So when you're really truly looking at intermittent fasting, like if you're trying to lose weight, alternate day fasting is known to be the best because when you are fasting on a daily basis, your fat burning hormones are affected by this. And then when you eat, that is a replenishment of the fat burning hormones. They call them refeed days in the fitness world. But in the I care about my brain health and not developing dementia world, which is over here, by the way, when you're looking at this, you can see right down here on the table. Okay, it's going to give you an outline of these. So you have intermittent fasting, which is the one where you're not eating for a specific period of time. You have your caloric restrictions where you're eating a little bit less and then you eat a lot more, so without malnutrition. And you notice people are drinking beer and eating Cheetos and Doritos and burritos and ice cream and McDonald's and they don't have malnutrition. So malnutrition is very hard. A lot of people can be deficient in specific nutrients that can show up in a blood test. However, so sorry about that, had to pause for a second. But time restricted feeding. This eating pattern involves restricted eating specific time periods. So between this many hours in a day. So what you're looking at here, restricted time feeding. So this is where people OMAD, which we're not going to talk about OMAD. If you want to do OMAD, really definitely talk to a dietitian on that to make sure that you get enough nutrients in a day because it's really, really, really uncomfortable when you first start it. It's not for everybody, I'll tell you that one. Yes, I did it for a very long time. However, I don't prefer it the best. I do have a very, very short eating window. I still technically do it, except my eating window is a little bit longer. It's about a 4 to 5 hour window. And that's like the maximum amount. But I'm going to be honest, and I probably still eat within like a 2 to 3 hour window. So don't do what I do. Do what you believe you should do. Talk to a professional. I'm not a professional. But eating patterns involving no caloric restrictions, so alternate day fastings. These are where you have your fast and your feast day. So you can cross-check this with dietitians, but this is the most effective weight loss for fasting, at least what I've been told in the research with other professionals, people that I've asked. So if I'm wrong, then I got the wrong information, but I don't think I am on this because I've asked way too many people. I'm like, real quick, is this one? They're like, yeah. And this is because when you're fasting one day, you're going to be able to burn fat, but continuous fasting slows down the fat burning process because your hormones get depleted and you can't burn fat as much as you originally were able to. So you do one day where you don't eat, one day where you eat. And that's where you actually lose weight. So like I can guarantee to you, and don't do this once again, I was literally losing weight and getting in super good shape, like shredded, eating Cheetos, burritos, Doritos, candy, ice cream, Slim Jims, Monster Energy drinks. Every bit of sludge that I tell everyone to not consume, I used to consume at one point in time. And it messes with the mental health. Physically, you can look like a freaking Greek god eating freaking ice cream. Guarantee on that one. That's why the fitness industry has like this kind of weird thing around it where everyone's like, do this, but I'm going to go drink beer and eat ice cream. And you're like, wait, what? You're shredded. Oh my gosh, you must know health. No, that's not an indicator of health at all. So alternate modified day fasting, which is where You consume less. So being in a caloric restriction, but getting enough calories, and then having a feast day. And I will tell you that the majority of people that we have worked with, the majority of people that I have seen in the world, they're either doing intermittent fasting, alternate day fasting, intermittent fasting with multiple day fasts. Like I was fasting 3 to 5 days at the beginning of every single month because I was learning about the longer fasts. And I can tell you, one of my friends had a lot of weight to lose, and we would have him fast to trigger skin autophagy. So autophagy, cells basically cleaning your own body. So whenever you have something that you individually need, you have to figure out which one makes the most sense for you. So if you're watching this video and you don't plan on investing in your health, working with a professional, really try to check out, like, we're going to go over this guide right here, like that how to fast guide, but really truly ask yourself, okay, like, am I doing this for a weight loss perspective? Or am I doing this to make sure that I can age properly? And I'll tell you, there is research behind people who age better that have lower levels of insulin growth factor 1, which means they have lower circulating sugars in their body, lower IGF-1, and that goes back to the brain-derived neurotrophin factor video. They followed people in meta-analysis studies showing that people that have lower levels of brain-derived neurotrophin factor were the ones that were developing the neurodegenerative diseases as they aged. So it is very important to make sure that you solve these problems now while you're young and your brain functions, because when you get older, changing your life, your neuroplasticity is not how it used to be as a child. And we'll talk about neuroplasticity with fasting. This is kind of like one of my favorite videos because fasting absolutely changed my life 100%. So can fasting improve heart health? Intermittent fasting regimens have been shown to improve cardiometabolic risk factors. So the inflammatory cytokines is a very important part. Inflammatory cytokines and having cytokine storms in your body are absolutely confusing sounding, probably, but definitely not good for the average human being. You can read a book, I think it's called An Elegant Defense, where it talks about like how your body is just going to attack shit, like macrophages or microphage will just attack shit because it's like, well, we got a problem going on over here, so call in the bomb strike, and it just obliterates everything. It's kind of like antibiotics. They're like, well, that's bacteria, it's going to die. So it just kills everything. So if you've taken antibiotics and you've never reinoculated your gut microbiome health, there are doctors, I will tell you, in research papers that talk about this from children taking antibiotics, never receiving the proper foods to re-inoculate the missing gut microbiome. Thus, remember, if you haven't watched the microbiome video, you know that the belly to brain connection is a very real thing that deals with your mood, your cognition, and your overall ability to memory, learn, focus. All of it is connected. So they're saying that those kids that have never had their connections reconnected, that they're like the ones developing ADHD, ODD, ADD, eventually getting anxiety, depression, having all these problems growing up because their guts just crave high sugar, high garbage, hyperpalatable foods. It's the BDNF one we went over, but the hyperpalatable foods. It's the reason why all these foods have so many ingredients in them. It's because they taste good. They make you salivate. Why does pizza smell good? Like, just think for a second. Like, why does food smell good? Like, go smell broccoli. Go to the don't do the things that I do. Okay, I mean, just don't sit there and smell your broccoli. You can do it at home. You can do all the weird shit at your house. Don't go to the grocery store and start sniffing vegetables. That'd be a little weird. But most of the vegetables you smell, like go up and grab a pepper, smells like fucking nothing, and then you go find like the roasted chicken that's in the aisle that's, covered in like 9 gazillion ingredients, and you're like, you could smell it from 5 miles away. You could drive by some place that has pizza and you could smell the hell out of it if you wind your window down, assuming COVID didn't destroy your smell. But decrease visceral belly fat. Remember the research. The bigger the belly, the smaller the brain. So produce similar levels of weight loss as CR regimens. So caloric restriction regimens. So where people are eating on a calorie deficit. Well, I mean, you can if you want, but you can also just suck it up and not eat one day and then eat like a total bro the next day, but don't eat like a bro. Eat like you want to have your brain when you're older. So fasting, 100% useful for weight loss. Across the board, we all know that that's real. There is 100% evidence that fasting can help you lose weight. So now, once we move down a little bit further, we go into the type 2 diabetes, which can be reversed naturally. So if you know anybody who is overweight, that has obesity, that is trying to reverse it, 100% can be done naturally. Please don't get the surgery. I know somebody who can help you, and literally, please let us know. We do not want people to go with surgery because they are going to miss so many benefits of life that they could have by doing it correctly. Like I remember one day I met a lady that was in the store and she was like heard me talking and she's like, "What do you do?" And I was like, I don't really know how to define that. A lot of this stuff, that fasting, blah blah blah, weight loss. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I just had bariatric surgery. This whatever ago." And I was like, "Well, dang." I was like, "You can reverse diabetes naturally, right?" And she said, "What?" She didn't even know. So the medical industries do take a while to catch up, and this is a pretty common thing. But for the reason, many experts have suggested intermittent fasting regimens for a potential treatment of obesity related to metabolic conditions and metabolic syndrome. So remember with like foods, metabolic syndrome in people's bodies, type 2 diabetes, too much sugar, IGF-1, cells can't absorb the sugar, turns into body fat. We're going to scroll past all this crazy stuff right here, but remember, synaptic plasticity, enhanced performance, and disease resistance, that is probably not showing because I clicked on the link. But right there, synaptic plasticity, enhanced performance, disease resistance, that is the whole point. I don't want to die from some terrible disease that I could have possibly, said, hey, wait a little longer before you kill me. But fasting, 100% connected to these things, 99.9% connected. We'll just put ourselves in the little safe zone over there. It's 99.99999% connected. Something close to that. But rest of this, probably boring stuff to you, so let me grab a couple more key points in this article, and then I'm going to jump over to the next one, and then we're going to give you some Google terms that you can search. You can go down the rabbit hole all you want on that one. I'll tell you, fasting changed my life 100%. Now, remember, research papers, okay? I'm the crazy person that's going to say, oh, additionally in mice, decline in muscle mass that occurs during normal aging is prevented by 40% for traditional fasting. 40% caloric restriction, muscle mass. Fasting is known to raise your HGH levels. Fasting is known to preserve muscle mass. I can tell you for a fact that when I was a 220-pound gym bro and I was fasting down to 185, I was absolutely shredded. I did not lose muscle. So I would say, based on the fact of being a test subject as a human being, going through these research papers where it would say, additionally in mice, TRF, which TRF up here, so eating pattern involves restricted eating for a specific period of time, 8 to 12 hours every single day, which was technically intermittent fasting, like 12 or long hours. I don't know why they confuse people with intermittent fasting and then time restricted feeding. They're literally basically the same thing. But as a personal rat, I did this myself. And I can tell you that you will maintain muscle mass like you wouldn't believe. And muscle mass at its core anyways, as we age, so normal aging, muscle mass's main benefit is an anti-aging effect. Among, not taking a step down the stairs and breaking your leg because your bones are so fragile. And in the genetic testing that we have, you'll find out if you have bone mass problems. So maybe going to the gym for you is more beneficial than you think. And the BDNF, motivation to exercise. Yeah, it's just unfortunate for some people out there. Like, I'll tell you, I'm glad that I don't have a CYP1A2 gene so I can have my caffeine, because I enjoy my caffeine. About after 5 hours after being awake. You should not use that to wake up. We'll talk about that in another video. But wake up, don't eat, let your glycogen deplete, and wake up, stop drinking your coffee because you're creating a feedback loop. Maybe you need to have a better, healthier lifestyle so you wake up with energy. Not, I need my coffee or I can't function. To me, that sounds dangerous. To other people, that might sound great. So the very first thing I encourage you to do is understand what's going to happen on a cellular level in your body when you decide to fast. So flipping the switch, understanding and applying the health benefits of fasting, very important. I can tell you that a dietitian will tell you, oh, pantothenic acid is going to be useful for you. So just remember the Snickers conversation. If you're hangry, eat a Snickers. When you're fasting, your body's going to switch from sugars to fats. Breaking down and utilizing those fats as fuel, that will help you a lot. So now I'm going to give you some Googles to check out, okay? So everyone has heard of before, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So you can see breakfast is often considered the most important meal of the day, but should it be? Question mark. Well, you have options. You can eat fattier foods and you can let your glycogen stores deplete and you can utilize those fats. You can have some more stuff to run on. You have some calories in your body, but remember, you're turning your digestive system on when you do that versus allowing blood to go to your brain to properly function in the day. So you can choose to eat breakfast. You don't have to fast. You don't have to do any of this. This is just all objective statements on things that I've done in my life, subjectively experienced through research and books. But when you're looking at skipping breakfast, I remember the phrase, and I teach it because I created it, but wake up, don't eat, let your glycogen deplete. That's your glycogen stores in your liver that would deplete, and that would allow you to get into a fasted state, thus raising the brain-derived neurotrophin factor level through the lower levels of glucose in your body, which glucose, BDNF related, BDNF neurogenesis, neuroplasticity. So basically in the morning, I look at it from a perspective of you have one of two options: grow your body or grow your brain, and you decide what you need. Like if you need to grow your body, then you may need to be consuming food to get the calories to be able to produce muscle growth, be in an anabolic state versus a catabolic state. So there are differences for everybody, and no two people are the same. Like the same thing with the CYP1A2 genetics. You might have a gene variant that says, yeah, hell yeah, drink caffeine. Somebody else might be like, you should probably limit it to under 200 milligrams so you don't want to give yourself a heart attack. So where people are fasting and they're consuming black coffee, thinking that they're healthy, drinking 4 or 5 cups of black coffee in a day, having genetics, well, where the cardiovascular risk goes down, goes up because you're not following your genetics. So skipping breakfast for kids, well, they're growing. They should obviously receive foods and nutrients precisely allocated in their body, of course, not just random things. Like it's insane seeing some of the stuff, knowing some of the stuff that I was fed as a child. It's like child abuse, but not. Anyways, experts agree that while fasting provides benefits, one meal isn't more important than the other. So right there, like breakfast is technically not as important as not eating breakfast. However, it becomes a personal choice that you get to choose the life that you want to live. I personally want to age as properly as possible. So I follow the science as much as I possibly can because, you know, when you're like 45, you're not going to be thinking like you were when you were 20 or 30. Like I don't think anything like when I was 23. I'm 33. I think nothing like when I was 23. And I wasn't worried about, you know, taking care of myself when I was 23. Now that I'm 33, worried about taking care of myself, getting to take care of myself and looking back on the ways that I can improve. So I try 100% to always follow research because, you know, at the end of the day, I have tried a lot of things that said were like rat studies and I'm like, yeah, cool, whatever. And then I would do it myself, and then the benefits that they talk about in the research were manifesting into reality, or whatever word you want to use there. It's very obvious that fasting is going to change the way that your brain functions, and anybody that has fasted before can attest to that information. So very valid across the board. Now, physiology and fasting. Okay, so this is breakfast, the most important meal of the day. Maybe not. This will be the next research paper we're going to look at, but let me give you some other Googles here as well. Make sure you guys can see these as well. Yep, you can. All right, cool. So fasting and neurogenesis, right? Intermittent fasting increases adult hippocampus neurogenesis, and this talks in rodents. But seriously, what bothers me the most is when we look at this, okay, so we type in this, and then human studies, enter. Okay, intermittent fasting on this, signaling pathways over here, rodent studies, okay, fasting and neurological diseases. Tell me this, okay, if you have the bigger the belly, the smaller the brain, research-wise, right? Just basic deduction skills here with the point of like, why in our world are we not allowed to like do any of these studies on humans, and 90% of them have to be on rats, and it's just like kind of ridiculous that the amount of human studies that are out there do not supersede the amount of rat studies that are out there. So you have like human hippocampus right here, great. So like this is like, okay, is this something that's good, right? When you're looking into this, it's like, I'm going to tell you, you're going to see a lot of stuff with animal research. And it's just like, I mean, I can tell you from this, if you're a type 2 diabetic and you're more likely to develop dementia, which is literally the opposite of generating new brain cells, you're like losing synaptic plasticity. You're not generating new connections. You definitely have issues with brain-derived neurotrophin factor. How does it not just make the most simple amount of sense? Occam's razor the hell out of this and say, well, the most logical thing is to say that, yes, fasting does improve neurogenesis rates in human beings. To tell you where I was, to tell you where I am, doing the 20-hour fast every single day for an entire year, reading literally a book almost every single day, never did that before in my life. Retaining the information, people always ask me, how are you able to remember this stuff? Well, I wish I could forget some of the stuff that I remembered because, you know, that's like that haunting voice in your brain where it's like, don't eat it. And I don't hear that one anymore. But you're going to be able to see. There's tons of research out there. Some of it's going to talk about animals, some of it's going to talk about humans. But I'm the type of person that's going to test it out for myself and tell if I feel the differences. Because you always want to be the person who decides for yourself. So like, I'm giving you this information to decide for yourself whether or not you should decide to do these things. So fasting, beta amyloid plaques. So if you've never heard of amyloid plaques, Alzheimer's disease, right? Forgetfulness, ApoE4 genes, 400% more likely or some 100% more likely to develop Alzheimer's. So evidence shows the metabolic changes from a fasting state may enhance brain function in terms of better cognition, increased neuronal plasticity, and resistance to injury and disease. And then you can go here and you can look into these research papers. It'll bring it down to this, once again, talking about the liver glycogen stores. As always, wake up, don't eat, let your glycogen deplete. And then when you're looking at these research studies, just control find human. So effects on intermittent fasting in both animals and human models. Possible future clinical applications of intermittent fasting and neurobiology pathologies. Like, they come to this stuff. So like human brain, 2% of body weight, 25% of resting metabolic weight. So when you're looking at these, just make sure that you do your own research. Talk to a doctor, talk to a PCP, talk to somebody smarter than me. These are the things that I did. I was severely depressed, tons of anxiety. Don't feel it a day in my life. Anxiety, mindset page, cannot be created nor destroyed, only converted from one form to another. Everyone's going to experience anxiety at some point in time. It's what you choose to do with it. Choose to change the way that you feel. So you're choosing to change it, no one else. So this talks about gluconeogenesis, and then haptic reserves. Don't even go into that stuff unless you want to go into that stuff. I can tell you the main understandings for fasting are your ketones, your glucose, your nutrients that you need in a day, and paying attention to eating, because a lot of people that start fasting, they get that rush, and that rush is very, very real. If you've never run in a fasted state, I can tell you when I first started, there were nights where I couldn't even sleep because I was just like this the whole time. I was wired out of my mind because I literally had probably one of the most garbage diets known to man. And then I'm going to leave you with this on the research papers to hopefully convince you into the research because, well, we talked about brain-derived neurotrophin factor, we talked about the microbiome already, so now you're on the fasting video, assuming that you're watching these in chronological order on the website like you're supposed to be doing, and if you're not watching these on the website, check out the www.homeostasisdiet.com. A lot of cool stuff on there. But BDNF, a member of the nerve growth family, is of paramount importance in maintaining neuronal survival, synaptic function, hippocampal neurogenesis, learning and memory, as well as major regulation of glucose metabolism in the body. Robust evidence supports the enhanced production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor as one of the most important neuronal adaptations of intermittent fasting. So just off of that sentence right there, I'd be like, damn, what the hell is this stuff? And then you would probably want to really truly understand and learn about it and realize that the learning and memory aspects of this, as well as the hippocampus, the memory and learning center, the generation of new brain cells into the memory and learning center, the synaptic functions in your brain, being able to have a higher level of synaptic plasticity and being able to learn and remember things as well. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and side on the fact that I don't give a crap if this is animal science or not. This is obviously not. Some of these are, some of these aren't. Definitely the benefits of fasting are very real. I have experienced them first time in my life. I was never a person that was into any of this stuff, so trust me, I was just a Cheeto-eating dum-dum living in a basement at one point in my life. So if you don't think fasting can change your life among reading books and other things, then I don't know what will. But what I'd like you to check out with some fasting Google searches is fasting, NCBI. So NCBI, always type NCBI after something you're looking for, and it's going to pull up some research papers that you're going to be able to look at. National Institutes of Health.gov. You know, if somebody has an issue with the government, well, they're lost. If you don't have an issue with the government and you realize that there's objective information out there and research papers that you can read to educate yourself, then well, enjoy that, because there's a lot. And then you can see over here, pantothenic acid as a weight reduction agent, fasting without hunger, weakness, and ketosis. So remember I was telling you with the hunger part and the weakness, is it B5? I think pantothenic acid's B5, right? Yeah, it is. Pantothenic acid, B5, barrier cream. Yeah, I don't know about rubbing a cream on your bum. I don't know, I'm just kidding. It's not a bum cream. I don't even know what it is. But right here, conventional method of fasting, aggressive dieting, reduces body fat, hunger, weakness, ketones, ketosis, and sequential events to follow. It's not understood why conditions of negative calories, blah, blah, yeah, it is. When's this research paper written? 1995? Yeah, okay, 1995. Of course they're saying they don't understand what's going on with it because there's a lot of new research. So whenever you're typing in, looking for your research papers, maybe type NCBI like 2022. Like always go maybe a year back because one that's like this year would be kind of interesting. But right here, recent suggestions that may increase brain function, better cognitive activity. Do I sound like I have a slow brain at all in any way, shape, or form? I fast every single day all day long. I didn't eat at all today. So you be the judge based on observing. So research papers, okay, how to fast, the guide. I'm not going to go through this one because it is massive. Just read it, understand it. So DNA damage highly promotes programmed cells death. So this is where we're talking about apoptosis. So they're talking about developing cancer because cells are protected from oxidative stress. So IGF-1 deficiency is caused by, let's see, the human growth hormone is rarely develop cancer. So you're going to learn a lot about fasting, sugars, cancer, brain-derived neurotrophin factor, neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, your freaking DNA. This is telomeres in your body. And the telomere effect, I think it's Elizabeth Epel and Elizabeth Blackburn, they found tetrahymena, which is pond scum. So a lot of the information, so elevated circulating, just let me leave you with this statement right here. Elevated circulating IGF-1, which is IGF-1, body grow, brain slow, sugars, IGF-1, insulin, cells, sugar, body, yep, are associated with an increased risk of developing cancers. People who have genetically severe IGF-1 deficiencies caused by a deficiency in a growth hormone receptor, which in bodybuilding, people take growth hormones, people inject insulin. It is what we treat diabetes with. That's supposed to make you lose weight, but it's like, no, 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 no. Keep injecting insulin and having your sugar and stay the same weight so we can just keep selling shit to you. That's literally the logic of it. So, like, that is the world that we are all coming from. So, they rarely develop cancer because their cells are protected from the oxidative stress-induced DNA damage. Well, if now they're saying that IGF-1 and having higher levels of that is causing oxidative stress and damaging my DNA. Sugar. Who knew? Could it possibly be that it's damaging your DNA? Well, moreover, DNA damage highly promotes programmed cells death, which is where apoptosis, fasting, positive versions of apoptosis. Hence, fasting may protect from cancer. And there are other research papers out there where being on chemotherapy, fasting, protecting your cells from dying, holy hell. Yeah, we're there already. So fasting may protect from cancer by enhancing the death of precancerous cells and reducing cellular and DNA damage. Sounds like fasting will save your life. But then it's known that calorie restriction may improve inflammatory and autoimmune diseases. And then producers of pro-inflammatory cytokines as well. I promise you I could sit here all day and just do this for hours. But I just want to get you interested in understanding that fasting could possibly be one of the most amazing things that you introduce into your life. And then remember we were talking about the amyloid plaques right here. I'm telling you this article alone right here, you ain't gonna never be asking anybody on the internet, how do I do this? How do I do this? But obviously, our role in all of this is doing medical testing to find out your baselines, understand where you are when you decide to do these things so you do them correctly. Like if you're deficient in glutathione and you decide to fast, here watch. Glutathione. Okay, so these are things that I didn't know when I first started. Powerful antioxidants your body could go if you decide to fast. So during extended fasting, you might also be at risk of depleting your glutathione levels because you're running out of cysteine normally supplied by your diet, which comes in a majority of foods. So severe conditions can lead to severe glutathione have been listed. So, please, I'm going to talk about some books here, but please, if you decide to fast, don't starve yourself to death. Like, don't. Like, I was not eating for 20 hours a day every single day for an entire year because I didn't really understand fasting that well. And it went really well for me. But then I was like, oh, I'm deficient in a lot of things. Oops. Those nutritional deficiencies don't show up until you're older. So now we're going to give you some books. Book number 1, The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung. Dr. Jason Fung is a nephrologist in Canada. He is responsible for pioneering the reversed type 2 diabetes treatment. He's in Canada somewhere. That's all I know. But Dr. Jason Fung, The Obesity Code. This is going to teach you about understanding obesity, which is basically everything that I just explained to you. This is going to be like why intermittent fasting is key to controlling your weight. You can literally even overeat and still intermittent fast and still, for some reason, just not gain weight. Like, you ever know those people that are like, they're like, how do you eat so much and never gain weight? Well, their metabolism's different than yours. Maybe their parents weren't diabetic and they didn't pass down genes where eating cake, Jimmy eating cake and Sally eating cake. Jimmy's parents were type 2 diabetic. Him eating cake, he's going to get bigger faster. Sally, she's good to go. So you're going to understand, and this says, unlocking the secrets of weight loss. I will tell you, if you have not watched the microbiome video, that yes, you're going to be able to fast, you're going to be able to lose weight. But everything is always going to tie itself back to gut health. So yes, you can fast and eat pizza, Doritos, Cheetos, burritos, and be shredded and reach your weight goals. However, long-term health goals, yeah, you might want to not just eat pizza and all that other stuff. Like, don't take that advice. Follow the 50 Brain Cell Challenge. We also have a 24-page paper of healthy foods written by our gut restoration dietitian available for free on the website as well, among tons of other ridiculous amounts of resources, just so nobody can say that they couldn't do it. Yeah, you can. I disagree, because I'm going to give you all the information you need for free. So only crazy people don't change their lives. And, well, actually, sometimes crazy people do change their lives, because the first person that probably wasn't eating, they're like, that's crazy. No, it's not. Smart. I think I proved the point, hopefully. But anyways, Obesity Code, Dr. Jason Fung, book number 1. It's really going to help you understand the insulin resistance, and you're going to learn more about how it's not good. And we're going to give you another Dr. Jason Fung book with Jimmy Moore, The Complete Guide to Fasting. Heal your body through intermittent fasting, alternate day fasting, and extended day fasting. There will be a lot of information in here understanding how to fast. But remember, I give this information out because I am not afraid that you go somewhere else. My only role here in all of this is if you want to work directly with a dietitian, we have a process for it. If you want genetic testing, blood testing, gut testing, we have a process for it. Everything that I'm teaching you will eventually come back to understanding your own genetics, to know what you should and shouldn't be eating. It will come back to the composition of your gut microbiome, knowing how to properly re-inoculate it. Everything should begin with some sort of blood test to understand at a baseline where you are. So in a full process, you'd think blood testing allows you to understand your deficiencies, nutritional genomics allows you to understand what your genetic pre-exposed to being deficient in. Majority of people, I'll give you an example, vitamin D. Most people have elevated need for vitamin D because we don't go out in the sun anymore. We're like these indoor cretins. We have cars that have roofs on them. Buy a convertible if you don't have a convertible. Anyways, sidetrack. Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung. The Complete Guide to Fasting. Another good one. And this is just, I can tell you, I've read some of this book and then I stopped reading it because it's just like a repeat of information you can find online. So, and then bestsellers in the ketogenic diet. So, ketogenic diet could be useful for people if you have epilepsy. There's also CD36 genetics that have a higher fat taste perception. So, why does a ketogenic diet taste good to one person and taste like crap to the other person? Well, I guess somebody has CD36 genes, meaning that, an avocado tastes good for one person, but an avocado tastes like junk to the other. So it still comes down to your genetics at the end of the day. So that's why one person likes something and one person doesn't like something. You also have genes for eating windows. So some people may need to eat more often than others because your genetics tell you that you should, which means fasting is a lot harder for you than it is for somebody else. So someone's like, yeah, I tried fasting, I can't do it. No, duh. There's genes for that. Yeah, I don't really like exercising, going to the gym, I'm not motivated. Yeah, I agree. There's genes for that. So the Complete Guide Through Fasting. This is going to give you an outline. However, I would say that this book is inferior to this article right here. Because this article is going over everything. Limited eating during the duration, effective strategy to reduce the overall caloric intake does not necessarily have to involve caloric restriction. So starving one day and fast feasting the next only during fasting and caloric restriction models. So I like the way that this information is presented in a research paper versus the information that's presented in the book. But as always, you choose. I'm just presenting information to you that you can use depending on how you enjoy digesting information on the internet. I'm going to throw a little curveball in here. Sick or fat or poor. You notice a lot of the, I don't have money type foods in the grocery store are always not the good foods. It's interesting. But in this book, you're going to learn a lot of crazy stuff that you might not be like, wait, what? And I'll tell you that I learned this book, and I'm going to leave you with a little bit of a personal story here. I found this book when I was in, this was a really long time ago. That hardcover, January, was this 2019? Oh, okay, I guess I found this book in 2019. I was in Whole Foods. 2019 is almost 4 years ago. Yeah, dang, it is almost 4 years ago at this point in time. Yeah, well, a long time ago. I was in Whole Foods. They were closing. It was myself and one other person in the aisle. And the person next to me was standing by sweets and stuff. And I just it was an older guy. And I just mentioned to him, I said, let me fix this real quick. Give you some story time here. So there was an older guy next to me. And I saw him and I said, excuse me, sir. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, getting some food. And I was like, you're not standing in front of food. And he's like, what do you mean? And well, you'll understand why this happened. He's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, well, everything over there is just pure sugar. It's 9 something at night. That's not food for this time. He's like, well, what would be considered food? And I was like, well, I'm not no health professional or anything, but I can tell you over here, you got some walnuts, you got some pecans, you've got some, walnuts, pecans, and almonds are the top 3 that are the fattier, fibery ones that you can have late at night. But I was like, technically walnuts are good for your colon. They're good for digestion. They have a lot of dietary fiber. There's some omega-3 fatty acids in them. So I would choose those over raisins. And then we just started talking to each other. He was kind of asking me what I was doing. And this is whenever I was like this company didn't exist back then. I was still in the educational phase of learning all of these things. So like research proved that that was worse than this, inferior, superior. And then he asked me some questions. I forget what it was, but then he like wanted to meet for coffee one day. He's like, yeah, he's like, you seem pretty educated on this stuff. You a doctor? I was like, no, I'm not. And he's like, oh, awesome. He's like, well, I'm going to be at this coffee shop, over here. He's like, would you like to discuss this stuff? Because I'm a doctor. And I was like, oh, he's a retired epidemiologist. And I was like, oh, even cooler. So he's the one that told me about this book right here, Sick or Fat or Poor. And he was like, we were just talking. He brought a friend with him too. He's like, you mind if I bring a friend with me? Because he was like intrigued whenever I was like, we talked for a while about like fasting, brain derived neurotrophic factor, neurogenesis, not eating, brain growth, all this other stuff. So they really helped me out a lot. And when I was sitting down talking to them, the other guy was asking me questions, and he was like, and then they were both doctors, and I was like, what the hell is this? So, I went from dumb to like literally sitting down and having coffee with retired doctors that were fascinated by me, and then I was fascinated by them. So it was really cool. But they were talking about this book here, and the one guy was like, you want to know the craziest thing to me? He's like, not that people live in the city. He's like, I don't live in the city anymore. He's like, obviously there's no good hospitals outside of the city, so I was kind of forced to live near one for a majority of my medical career. And then as like side note, I was like, wow, sounds cool to be rich, at that time in life. And then I'm like, oh, it's no different now. But he was saying it's insane that people run outside on the street in the city next to cars. He's like, they might as well just, connect up to the exhaust pipe and just breathe it in. And then I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, have you ever read this book? And I said, no, sir, I haven't. And then he said, you should read it. So, right here, disrupting chemicals to our health and future and what we can do about it. So you're going to learn a lot about what to do about it. And this is where we go into our DNA with fasting and making yourself healthier. So after everything I've explained in this video, does it sound like a crazy idea that I may be one of those people out there on the internet of randomness that would be able to change your life in ways, shapes, and forms that you may not have known were possible? Because I didn't know that any of this stuff was possible. I was like, breakfast, yeah, give me some McDonald's, I'm hungry. And then I got a little bit older and I was like, wait a minute, there's this thing called health. I can breathe air consciously. What is all this? So wherever you are in your life, remember, there's always a better place in space that you could be in. And whenever you're ready for that, you will find it because you'll start looking for it. And you'll just have to wander around lost as hell for a while and eventually, smack you right in the head and you'll be like, oh, there's the answers all along. So fasting. I personally do it every day. Some days I won't. Like there's like 1 or 2 days out of every month that I may eat in the morning. But a majority of days I fast. Wake up, don't eat, let your glycogen deplete, and if you mind your gut, I hope you know the answer to that right there. So mind your gut and you will keep your... See you in the next video. And if you're watching this on YouTube, by the way, comment down below. Feel free to ask any questions. Let me know what you need. I'll try to cater and make videos that if I haven't already made those videos. So be careful. If you haven't been to a website, I have lots of information on website that is linked to research papers and books. So you can go wander around the internet and deduce your own answers. So eventually, I hope the whole goal of this is we can be on the same page with things. And if I'm on the wrong page, feel free to smack me in the head with a book and correct me. Because I prefer to... It's like science. Oh, the universe is not what we thought it was. I guess we're going to have to be rewriting all the science books again. Nobody gets upset whenever they're wrong because it's science. And it's just all about making sure everybody has a chance to live a better life correctly. So I will see you in the next video.